Today we are talking about the first watch in space, arguably the most important watch in space. And most people have no idea which watch it was. Some people think they know. They think it was Yuri Gagarin's Shturmanskie, but it wasn't. So keep watching. So first things first, the very first watch in space was not Omega, right? That's a shock, right? So I mean it's quite obvious. So Soviet Union went to space first, and they used their own watches. So obviously the very first watch in space is a Soviet watch, right? And the very first man in space was Yuri Gagarin. And Yuri Gagarin, on that very first flight into space, so he was wearing a Shturmanskie watch. But it wasn't the very first watch in space. But still, it was very important watch. It was watch that was first in space worn by a man. And it's actually a very cool watch. So I'm gonna show you some pictures. There are actually two Yuri Gagarin Shturmanskie that you need to know about. So like Shturmanskie wasn't a brand that you could just like go buy in a store. So that was these watches, they're issued to you. So the very first Shturmanskie Type 1. So when Yuri Gagarin finished academy, he was issued Shturmanskie Type 1. He owned it. That was his personal watch, and that's not the watch that went into space on the first flight with him, right? Still very cool watch. It looks almost exactly like Type 2. And when he went to space, as part of his uniform, the watch was given to him. Kind of like they give you like your I don't know, helmet, your socks, your watch. So they gave him Shturmanskie Type 2, not Type 1. And the Type 2 is almost like Type 1, but slightly different. I think it has slightly improved movement. It's you look into them. I'm gonna show you pictures of both. So this one that you see right now is actually Type 2. So Type 2 was given to him, so he went into space, he came back, and that's the glorious watch that was very first watch that was worn in space by the man. Now, why am I saying that it wasn't the first watch in space? So I don't know if you know, but before Soviet Union was sending people into space, they were actually sending dogs into space, and other animals actually, but dogs dogs were quite famous. So one of those dogs, so that's the dog's picture, named Chernushka. So Chernushka went into space and actually came back. But what's interesting about Chernushka is that there was this employee who wasn't a cosmonaut, actually, like the dog was a cosmonaut. But what he did is he took his personal Pobeda watch and he strapped it into the leg of a dog of Chernushka. It actually, the whole thing was unauthorized, so he did it on his own initiative. And then Chernushka went into space, and Chernushka went back, and the watch was still on the paw of Chernushka, and it was still running well. And actually that employee got into trouble for doing such stunt because the Pobeda watch, it actually had his name engraved. So I'm gonna put the whole fascinating story in the description if you want to know more about this. Is like fascinating story. Thank you for watchuseek forum Arizone for actually starting the thread and sharing this story with us. But yeah, you should read like the whole thread. This is like fascinating story. But basically that watch, that Pobeda watch, was the first watch in space, and that's the one which is the most important watch in space. So as you can see from the pictures, both Pobeda and Shturmanskie are very, very attractive watches. Like one thing that you should know about them is they are like these are men's watches. These are like seriously men's watches. But at that time, men liked smaller watches, like all vintage watches. So Pobeda is 32 millimeters. And Shturmanskie is, I think, 33, it might be 34, but I think Shturmanskie is actually 33 millimeters. So they're a little bit smaller. So what you would have to do is you probably would want to wear them on a bund strap. So like on bund, they look good. So this one is actually, this is actually also Pobeda. This is 32 millimeters Pobeda, but that's not the one that went to space. That's the one that my grandpa was wearing. As far as my dad remembers him, he was wearing actually this Pobeda. So that's the one. See, on bund strap it looks good. There are different bund straps. I reviewed one. You can click kind of over here. I actually reviewed this one. I reviewed Fluco bund strap. That's one, but there are like a bunch of them, and it's actually historically correct because during the times. Men were wearing bund straps a lot. Like if you look, if you watch old Soviet movies, you can see a lot of people actually wearing, not all of them obviously, but a lot of them actually wearing bund straps, and probably with Pobedas. Now in terms of, I want to say about the quality of the movement. Because there is this common mistake that these watches somehow should be less valuable because movement is bad. I even heard that from guys from Analog Shift. This is absolutely wrong. Shturmanskie actually had Pobeda movement inside. And obviously Pobeda had Pobeda movement. So Pobeda movement was designed by Lip, French Lip. So Lip went to Soviet Union, created a factory, designed a movement for them that looked almost exactly like so they designed K26 that looked almost exactly like one of the Lip own movements. This is fully jeweled movement, fully serviceable. They are glorious. They run for like very, very long time without service. They are known to run for like 50 years without service. Soviet watchmakers, they don't even like to preemptively service those watches because there is this tale that you don't want to disturb the how the dirt settled into the movement, because if you disturb it then it's gonna break. I mean, it's obviously stupid, but this I don't know if my grandpa, I think he actually serviced it once in his life, but usually those Pobedas are never serviced, and they run for, they're kind of like Seikos, they run like for 40-50 years. The only thing is, like, if you don't live, so like for example if you live in New York City like I am, then like watchmakers, they obviously they never handled Pobedas, and they do not have parts, so they can service them, but they do not have parts, so you would need to get parts from somewhere, from some like Eastern Europe. So that's on quality of the movement. In terms of authenticity, unfortunately Shturmanskie is faked a lot. It's crazy how much it's faked. So if you decide to buy Shturmanskie, you should do this is worth another video. I don't have all the information with me, but yeah, do your own research. That watch is faked a lot. Now in terms of Pobeda, nobody really knows about that story that Pobeda went to space. So that specific, I think it's 34K, the one that went to space. That specific watch is not fake that much, but all Soviet watches, they have issue that people service them and they swap parts, so you have like hands from a wrong watch, you have some like plate from the different watch, like you look that this should not have shock protection, but it does. So like you need to make sure that all visible parts of the movement are the one that should be there. That Geneva, so actually those movements had Geneva stripes, like those are pretty cool movements. Sometime later, Soviet Union stopped doing that, but actually the Pobeda has Geneva stripes. You can see it in the picture. You need to see the Geneva stripes all match, so it's not like not movement assembled from different parts. The same about dial. But usually Pobeda is not faked, but Shturmanskie is faked a lot. So very important watches, very not that expensive watches, very attractive watches. Just if you think they are small, then get yourself a nice boon strap. Yeah, so I highly recommend. I do not own any of these watches. I should actually bought it before making this video. I do not own any of these watches. I appreciate pictures provided for this video, first of all from Arizone for providing pictures of Pobeda, and thank you Odessa 200 for providing pictures of Shturmanskie. So thank you for watching. I think this is a fascinating topic. If you like vintage watches, you probably wanna subscribe to my channel. You should click somewhere here on my face and click subscribe. I'm gonna be making more interesting videos about vintage watches, and there are also already like a bunch of videos there. Check them out. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye.